When the Quiet Breaks, a deeply emotional tale of love, betrayal, and the quiet strength that rises after a shattered truth. She was 34 when her world finally cracked open, but the first fracture happened long before she ever realized it. For most of her life, Averie Whitlock believed she was the quiet one in her family, the one who loved gently, worked tirelessly, forgave easily. Growing up in the small Connecticut town of Elm Harbor, she lived in the shadow of her brilliant older sister, Julianne, whose star always seemed to shine a bit too bright, too loud, too perfectly defined. Their mother, Helena, used to say, "Jules was born from lightning, and Averie from candlelight." But no one ever explained that candlelight burns slowly, while lightning disappears in an instant. Averie learned early how to be invisible, even in her own home, and perhaps that was why betrayal found her so easily, because she didn't yet know how to be seen. The beginning of everything, and the end of what she thought she knew. At 28, Averie landed a dream job at Sterling Gate Logistics, a rising US-based freight tech company aiming to modernize global deliveries. Not a glamorous empire, but steady, growing, and hers. Within 5 years, she became the youngest senior strategist the company had ever hired. Her salary, $135,000 a year, felt surreal to a girl who once counted quarters to afford her textbooks. But the real light in her life wasn't the company. It was Evan Marcel, a project director from the Chicago office, 8 years older, soft-voiced, steady-handed, with a gaze that felt like a warm cup of tea on a winter night. They met during a cross-office leadership retreat. She spilled her coffee. He laughed softly and handed her a napkin. That tiny moment became the hinge that shifted her entire life. They began as co-workers, then friends, then something quiet, steady, beautiful. Within 2 years, they were married in a small ceremony under elm trees by the water. Helena cried dramatic tears. Julianne wore a white dress, something Averie still remembers thinking was odd. But she brushed it off, not wanting to cause waves. For the first time in her life, Averie felt chosen, unequivocally, finally. The cracks she didn't see, or didn't want to. After the wedding, Evan received an unexpected promotion, a $50,000 raise, a sleek glass office, a new project that would put him in close partnership with the strategic division, Averie's division. What she didn't realize then was that her husband's new role came with invisible attachments and dangerous proximity. And her sister, Julianne, who had recently moved back to town after a chaotic divorce, began visiting far too often. She claimed she needed family around, but Averie noticed how her sister's eyes lingered, too long, on Evan. Yet Averie learned to silence every suspicion. Candlelight doesn't flare. Candlelight forgives. Even when Evan came home late. Even when his phone buzzed at midnight and he swore it was work. Even when Julianne suddenly became interested in Sterling Gate and kept asking about Evan's office hours. Averie felt the truth like a storm door trembling, but she didn't yet dare to open it. The day the quiet finally broke. The discovery wasn't cinematic. It wasn't explosive. It was still. Devastatingly still. Averie had left her laptop charger at home. She returned quietly, meaning only to grab it and rush back to the office. What she found was her husband's jacket on the floor, and her sister's heels by the stairs, and voices, low, breathless, familiar, in the room she once dreamed of turning into a nursery. She froze, her breath turned to glass. She didn't scream. She didn't collapse. She simply stood there, her heart learning, for the first time, what shattering sounded like from the inside. Julianne's laugh was the first thing she heard. Evan's soft apology was the next. And then, nothing. Because nothing is louder than betrayal. They didn't see her as she left. They didn't even notice. That was the worst part. Grief, not anger, the longest season of her life. For months, Averie lived in a rented apartment with boxes she never unpacked. She ate cereal for dinner, worked tirelessly to distract herself, and avoided her mother's calls. Helena insisted Julianne had made a mistake, but Averie already knew the truth. This wasn't a mistake, it was a choice. A choice her husband made. A a choice her sister embraced, a choice that burned through every quiet part of her life. And yet, she didn't collapse. She didn't turn violent. She didn't seek revenge. She simply endured, slowly, quietly, painfully. Then, one late evening at Sterling Gate, her division held an emergency meeting. A major contract had collapsed. Someone had leaked critical data, and according to the system logs, it came from Evan's team. Shockwaves tore through the company. Averie was dragged into the mess as a strategist, but what she discovered was far more personal than she expected. Evan's messages, unauthorized file transfers, secret communications, and one forwarded email she recognized immediately. Her own project strategy, a confidential document sent from her laptop's backup folder. He had used her research, her work, her trust, to boost his numbers, to get his promotion, to impress Julianne with his brilliance, she later realized. Betrayal had layers she never imagined. The woman who finally stopped breaking. When Evan was confronted, he tried to blame stress, bad judgment, miscommunication. But he didn't expect Averie to be in the room. She sat there, calm, steady, composed in a way no one could have predicted. And she looked at him, not with hatred, but with a kind of sorrow that comes from surviving something she once believed would destroy her. Her testimony was simple, honest, devastatingly clear. He was terminated at once. His reputation dissolved overnight. Julianne disappeared from town 2 weeks later. Rumors said she left for Arizona with a man who promised her a glamorous future. No one heard from her again. As for Averie, she didn't celebrate. She didn't gloat. She didn't dance on the ruins of their betrayal. Instead, she went home that evening, made a cup of tea, and finally cried, softly, silently, until dawn. But pain is strange. It leaves, quietly, the same way it enters. The victory that didn't need loudness. Sterling Gate offered Averie a new role, Director of Strategic Vision, a promotion she earned not through manipulation, but through integrity. She rediscovered her own worth, layer by layer. She reconnected with old friends. She traveled. She healed. And she learned that endings aren't always bitter. They're doorways. 2 years later, she met someone new. Not spectacular, not flashy, not lightning. Just warm, gentle, present. His name was Caleb Rowan, a teacher, a widower with soft eyes and steady hands, the kind of man who knew how to protect a heart without caging it. With him, Averie found something she never had before: safety, simplicity, peace. And when their daughter Alara was born, Averie held her close and whispered, "You don't need to shine like lightning. Candlelight is enough to warm the whole world." Moral of the story: some betrayals break you. Others reveal the strength you've had all along. And sometimes the quietest souls rise the highest, not because they're loud, but because they refuse to lose their light.